If there is one word that you never want said about your movie and one I would use about minions and monsters, it would be confusing. I don't understand why we need a movie about minions taking over 1950s Hollywood and creating their own films. I don't know why we need a woman falling in love with a robot and leading him into the feminist movement. And I especially do not understand why we need a satanic ritual to summon a monster from the underworld in a kids' movie. While I may be a conscientious critic, the one thing I am not is a school-marming prude. I just did a review of the very violent Citizen Vigilante and praised it for its provocative message. And if you've seen any of my reviews, I don't go around staging witch hunts to look for Satan in every movie. But here I have to join the chorus of parents raising concern over the fact that this movie is just freaking weird, if not worse. The brilliant folks over at Yahoo are calling it satanic panic, but please explain to me why we should even have to have anything close to satanic panic in a children's movie, much less the reliably family-friendly movies that we have come to expect from the Minions franchise. It's all plain weird. And when I say weird, I don't even mean that it's woke or identitarian. Disney corners the market on that stuff for kids in their movies.
And that, my friends, is what we like to call in the business Disney magic.
I just mean that it's weird. Please allow me to explain by virtue of the plot. In the early days of film in Hollywood, while silent films are the norm, minions are all the rage. But as audio takes over and the film industry becomes more sophisticated, minions are left behind in the dust, so they embark upon a journey to create their own film, which is where we get the title for this film. James and Henry decide that they need to do a film starring a big monster, but the problem is they don't have the money to make one, so they have to go find a real one. They venture out into the Arctic to find said monster, but instead all they find is a book that forces them to summon a monster from the underworld for their film. A huge blob with eyes is unleashed upon the world, and now the minions have to jump into action to save us from the very threat that they created. Of course, other minions are busy doing what they typically do, supporting a villain. In this case, a fumbling robot named Dort from a distant planet is trying to take over the Earth at the same time. But he is thwarted in his efforts to take over the world by a domesticating force in a feminist. And yes, I wish I was kidding.
Well, I'm out, man.
But a couple of women on a women's march stop to correct the robot in the middle of his campaign to take over the world, and she asks him, "You believe that men and women are equal, right?" And now you're probably thinking, dear Lord, if that's all feminism actually was, rather than unhinged sexual liberation, we might actually live in a sane world today.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
But more importantly, why is this even in a kid's movie?
What the f?
The rampaging robot receives the rebuke and falls for the feminist, at which point we get a love story between a robot and a woman, because he's not, quote, like other men. And right before they're about to kiss, the aforementioned blob comes to attack the city, at which point Mr. Robot runs away like a good male feminist, only to later return with the other minions who are now armed with space lasers. They take out the blob that James and Henry summoned from Satan, and nature is healed. All of it was conveniently filmed, thus saving the movie industry and the world. Now, did I mention that all of this is really weird? For the record, I would personally tell you that I am mostly in favor of first-wave feminism, and absolutely against second- and third-wave feminism, given their penchant for Marxism and all. And while we can debate the merits, or lack thereof, of the most radical movement in American history, what with all the emphasis on sexual liberation and all, but one big question emerges that all academics must wrestle with in the midst of that conversation. Why in the heck is any of this in a kid's movie? See what I mean? The only way you wouldn't think this is weird is if your conscience has been totally seared by Hollywood. In a fictional world, why must a monster be summoned from a demonic underworld? None of it makes sense, and it is totally avoidable. Even if you would make the argument in defense of Hollywood that it's just harmless fun and imagination, which why would you ever defend them? But let's just say you do. I still have a question. If you can imagine any place to summon a monster, why does it even have to be hell? Why not make it come from heaven? From outer space? Why not make it come from a deep, dark cave, from the underwater, rather than the underworld? It just doesn't make sense to create controversy in a kid's movie unnecessarily unless you have an agenda. I can't speak to motive in a movie like this, and I try to largely stay away from doing that and let the evidence speak for itself. But this movie is a mystery, and while the movie does have cute moments that make you chuckle, I've saved the biggest mystery for last. Why in the world do you have to smuggle in to a kid's movie the B word?
I have had it with these snakes on this mother plane.
Please, make it make sense. All of the things I've just mentioned are cause for caution for parents and perhaps frustration more than anything. Despicable Me and the Minions franchise has been a mostly reliable option for families who want to entertain their small children. But with the pointlessness of this plot, the questionable themes in the movie, and the language, you may just want to skip this one for your kids. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to check out this other great review that YouTube thinks you'll like. And don't forget to like and subscribe. But most importantly, go with God.